Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Wilder Ride. I'm Alan Sanders here, and we are bringing to you another special Patreon show. I'm your host.
Oh, you're not going to say your name.
I did say it at the very beginning.
And I'm your co-host, Walt Murray.
Wait a minute, you weren't listening to me when I said I'm Alan Sanders?
I already know who you are.
I know you know who I am.
Yes, I was riveted. I was so riveted that I was just stunned when you threw it to me.
You just let it go right on by.
Yes, that might be the nicer way of saying it.
Well, we are in the midst of the holidays, and Walt, I can't even believe that. We are on the heels of Halloween, and here we are already thinking about Christmas and the end of the year and the celebration of festivities and Hanukkah and all those kinds of activities.
It is amazing. And to think about it, too, we've almost been working on this podcast for a year.
Oh, my God. You're talking about the Wilder Ride in general, not this episode of Christmas Vacation.
Well, you may feel like we've been working on this movie for a year, but yes, the Wilder Ride has been in some sort of creative something or other for almost a year.
I mean, I actually had the dream in December of last year and talked to you about it in early January.
Yeah, so that should be a holiday, right?
Yeah.
Wilder Ride Day?
Yeah, I guess we could call that Gene Wilder Day.
Oh, there you go. There you go. He deserves a day.
Oh, he definitely deserves it more than we do.
Well, we'll see by the end of this. People may laud our show so much by the end of this we deserve a holiday because we are doing one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time.
So some say.
I am going to have so much fun with this.
Dude, you have no idea how much this is hurting me. I mean, it's painful. This is what we're going to be doing for the next 7 weeks, breaking down the Chevy Chase classic, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Well, I personally want to thank our listeners and the members of our listeners group because they not only voted for this movie, they were also the ones who added it to the list. What were some of the other movies that we had on the list? I can't remember all of them.
What you need to do is actually thank your host for being a dumbass.
Good golly.
Because when I posted the poll, I didn't lock it down and left it open.
Well, I do appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it is totally my fault.
Well, the funny thing is, I brought this movie up as one that we should consider, and you said, no, I'm not a fan. We watch it every year. I've never liked this movie.
Well, let me make this clear. When I say we, I mean me and my wife. I don't really have a whole lot of choice.
Well, right. So this movie's imposed on you once a year.
Right.
And not only is your wife now imposing it, but so are the listeners.
The will of our listenership. And for me, it's just going to hurt.
Well, I know in the future there will be movies that I'm not a fan of that we do. But, you know, when we started Poltergeist, I had mentioned that not that I didn't like Poltergeist, but it was not one of my go-to movies. And by the end of it, it became one of my go-to movies. So it'll be interesting to see how you feel about it when you break it down. It'll also be interesting to see how I feel about it when we break it down and see if I still like it as much as I do.
And that's why I'm here. I'm hoping that either I gain some new insight, or I can maybe figure out more of your respect. No, I'm not bitter.
Well, I have a feeling that we may end up exactly where we are now when we get to the end of it.
We might. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to all of the folks on our Patreon page that are supporting us. And this show is really for them. Although we'll make the first episode available to everyone, these are the folks who will get the remainder. And if you want to get the remainder of these shows, you need to sign up. So the first shout out goes to Mike Spittler. He's our executive producer level support. It's a $20 a month support, and he is at the top of that list. Thanks, Mike, for being out there. The next group of folks that support us, and it's the minimum tier to get this bonus content, are the friends, or You Deserve a Toast with the Waco Kid. It's a $10 a month. And a big shout out to Valerie Knowles, Matt Biller, Amber Gilpatrick, Melissa Moody, Wendy Muller, and Tara Bain. We also have a couple of other friends that we want to give a shout out to. They're just throwing us a little bit just to say thank you. And that's Valerie Biller, Off the Bounce, the NBA basketball podcast, and our good friend Rob Smithers. Thank you guys so much for being patrons of the Wilder Ride.
Well, I want to thank everybody who's along with us. I'm excited every time I see somebody's name pop up as a patron, and it's just great to have folks listening and so many people joining in the listeners group. And this really is a highlight for me. I know it is for you too, Alan. We talk about that, and really appreciate everybody who's been so encouraging and helpful to us so far.
Yeah, no matter what I feel about this particular movie, I am just eternally grateful for the folks that are out there, the ones who are supporting us, our listeners, our patrons, and I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure that they get the content they deserve.
Yeah, me too. And we look forward to seeing what movie y'all voiced on us next.
Well, let's get to it. This Christmas classic, we're going to bring you an episode every Monday. I want to remind you that we're going to break this up into 7 segments. So you'll get a new episode from now until literally Christmas Eve when the final drops. It's a nice way to tie in the holidays. You know, maybe if you're out and about shopping and you just need something to get a distraction from the shopping and the hustle and the bustle, you can pop the earphones in, the earbuds, and just listen to some of these episodes.
That's right. Good escape from family at the holidays.
Well, this is the sequel to the original Vacation, and it's a holiday favorite for so many people. Walt, is this one of your holiday favorites?
It's actually in my top 2. So yes, it is.
What's the other one, in your top 2?
The other one would be Lethal Weapon.
Now that's a Christmas movie I can get behind.
Yes. Well, as you might know, I'm not real sentimental. So
yeah, right.
I like my comedies and my action adventure. So I kind of skip a lot of the holiday nonsense. I mean, and holiday entertainment. But also my in-laws watch Christmas movies year round. So kind of drives my kids crazy, but I get my fill whenever we go visit them.
Well, this does not count as one of my all-time favorites. But the wife loves this movie, and so it does get seen at least once a year at our house. Now, my personal favorite is the movie Die Hard. I mean, that's my favorite Christmas movie.
Yeah, and Die Hard's a classic, too. I say that has to be right up there in my at the top of my list as well.
The cool thing about Die Hard is it doesn't even have to be Christmas time to watch it. You can watch it any time of year. I mean, if there's nothing on TV, you can be guaranteed Die Hard's a good flick to watch.
That's right. And it is on TV all the time at the holidays.
No, getting serious for a second. What would be some of the Christmas movies you would watch each year?
Star Wars.
Wow. So this is the depth and breadth of your knowledge of Christmas movies, huh?
Well, I mean, like I said, I kind of get my fill, and this year it was ridiculous. Like Sam's Club and Walmart had Christmas stuff out at the end of August. And so I don't know. I kind of get my fill of the holidays. Well, I get my fill of Christmas by about Halloween, getting bombarded with Christmas music throughout the holidays and all that. I'm kind of ready for Christmas to be over by the time it gets here.
Oh my God. So this is where we're going to be on complete polar opposites. I love Christmas. I can't wait to get the decorations up. I can't wait for the music. I love everything about Christmas, the lights, the decorations. I love getting the Christmas tree up. Everything about the holidays, it just brings me nothing but joy, and I can't get enough of it. I mean, nothing is better than sitting at night with the Christmas tree lights on, the fire in the fireplace, drink in hand, dogs at my feet. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Did you ever work retail?
I did. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad we're heading down this path, because for about 5 years, I did work retail. I worked electronic retail, and I would be ready to get toy drops maybe around August. We would start stacking up all these remote control cars and other electronic toys and all, cool stuff. But I remember one year I was sitting there and the toy drop showed up, and it was August. And I just remember saying to myself, oh my God, I can't believe we're already getting toys. I hate Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't hate Christmas. I hate frickin' Christmas shoppers. I hate the people who I have to deal with that are buying toys during the holiday season. And I realized right then and there that I couldn't stay in retail any longer. I turned in my resignation. I got out of the retail business and looked for that regular 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job, because I will never say I hate Christmas again.
Well, I think I just got kind of tired of all the, just the shopping and the people in a bad mood and just all the other stuff that came with it. And like I said, I'm not a real sentimental person, so getting sentimentality pushed on me, and I don't know. I mean, I had a good childhood. I didn't have anything bad ever happen at Christmas time, but I think it just kind of wore me out at some point.
Wow. But you've got kids, though. I mean, doesn't that change your view of the holiday?
I enjoy spending time with my kids, and I do enjoy the family time. And really, like, I think Thanksgiving for me is much bigger than Christmas. I really enjoy Thanksgiving because it's, a little bit more laid back, a little bit more, family oriented. You're not worried about gifts and doing all that kind of stuff. And it's just more of a time to get together with the people you care about and spend time with them. So from that side, I do really like Thanksgiving.
Well, you and I can agree on that. I mean, I will say that as I've gotten older, I realized that the specialness of the holidays is being together. And there is something about Thanksgiving where you're not worried about the shopping, you're not worried about the gift giving, you're not worried about, the actual Christmas Eve itself. You can just be with friends and family with a really good meal all around the table, and that's enjoyable.
Yeah, so I do really enjoy that. And I think I've always been in jobs too that have been a little bit crazy around the holidays. So that, even when I was at a large international business machine company, we were always coming up towards the end.
Hey, I was part of that same company.
Yes, I think we're both very familiar with it.
I believe it was a bit international.
It was international, and they did a lot with business machines. And but you had a very blue Christmas around there, and it was always they fourth quartered at the end of December. So even that week, we were kind of rushing up to a big close and all that kind of stuff. So that probably has something to do with it as well. Just kind of always felt that pressure. But I do have to say there are a lot of good things that I do enjoy about Christmas, but the family time is probably the best part. And it's funny when I watch this movie, even though it's obviously cartoonish in many ways, it still is like, oh yeah, okay, I can see my family in some of this.
Well, I know people like this too, but that's going to be one of my little sticking points with this movie, because as we go through it, the people that I know that act like this are not very successful in real life.
No, well, there are always people that you're like, how is that idiot successful? But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, I think we're going to have fun kind of taking some of these characters apart.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, before we go on to the opening credits, and we will be diving into this movie in 14-minute chunks. I already said before, we're going to have 7 parts. So each one breaks down to about 14 minutes apiece. But when it comes to holiday decorating, I just want to put out there how much I look forward to doing it. In fact, I could put up our tree right now if the wife would let me. I've got a couple of things we've got to do on the honey-do list before we start putting all the stuff out. But I want the listeners to know how much I love the holiday. And we put a tree in every room. We have a special themed dining room tree. We have a living room tree. We have a family room tree, the great tree in the big family room. We put one downstairs in our movie room. The kids put trees in their rooms. So if it sounds like I'm suffering through as if I don't like the holidays. Trust me, I do. I absolutely love Christmas.
And, again, maybe it will be something that you find some stuff in here that's a little bit more redeeming for you and helps to change your opinion of the movie.
Well, one thing I can tell you off the bat, as we get past the Warner Brothers logo, I love the song for Christmas Vacation. To me, this should be something in everyone's Christmas music rotation. It's fantastic. It's a really, really good song.
It's that time. Christmas time is here. Everybody knows there's not a better time of year.
I'm the same way, and I didn't do much research on that song, but that's not a traditional song. That was written for this movie, right?
No, it was written specifically for this movie. It was written by the husband and wife songwriting team of Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil and was performed by Mavis Staples of the Staples Singers fame.
Oh, okay.
It's awesome. I love this. I'll just watch the opening credits just for this song.
This Christmas vacation. This old house sure is looking good. Got ourselves the finest snowman in the neighborhood.
Well, and I really like the opening to this, and we have already talked about this with Young Frankenstein and how long those opening credits were. I really like the way that even though they've got about 4 or 5 minutes of credits here, they buffer it with a really great animated opening.
Yeah, and it almost strikes me, I mean, it's not quite the same, but it's like that Chuck Jones animation from How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sure does. And this also reminded me of the Pink Panther movies, the Peter Sellers films.
Right.
They always opened up with an animated bit right up front. So I think it sets a good tone for the movie, and it's also a good way to keep the audience engaged as you go through that list of names.
Oh, without a doubt. And it does make it a lot easier to digest when you realize all the things happening around the movie are like this. In fact, you know what? You made a comment earlier, and I should have glommed onto it a little sooner, about it being cartoonish. And maybe that's one of my big things with this, is I have an issue with people that are supposed to be taken seriously who also act cartoonish. And this movie tells you right from the very beginning, you're watching basically a live action cartoon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is not to be taken seriously. And if you come into this not having seen Vacation, it might be a little awkward to you if they just went straight into the movie to start with. You wouldn't have a sense of the characters or anything like that. But I think this does kind of set a good tone, letting you know what, I mean, obviously it's Christmas Vacation, so it's around the holidays. But also with it being that animation up front, you do know that it's not a serious movie.
Right. And one of the things that I really like the original Vacation. But for some reason, they didn't go into anything that was so outlandish, so over the top. I mean, it was weird situations, but I could buy into what was happening, where things were sort of on the outside affecting them. It wasn't so much that Clark was a complete bonehead. But with this movie, it feels like the stuff that he does is so ludicrous, and yet you're supposed to accept the fact that this guy is successful in business. And I know John Hughes wrote this. I'm a big fan of the John Hughes movies. In fact, I think I've seen everything that John Hughes has either written or directed. But this would be one of those scripts where it bothers me, because you've got this upper level, highly paid, or at least respected at work executive who, you're juxtaposing it against this guy who acts like a buffoon.
Well, and we'll kind of get to it at the end of this segment, but I do want to talk about that a little bit, because I don't think he is quite where he wants to be in the company, or wants to position himself in the company. And I think you see that with the executives that are walking around with his boss at the end of this segment. So when we get to that, it'll be interesting to see and discuss that a little bit and get our opinions on that, because I don't think he's that high powered. I kind of take him as being good at what he does and a valuable part of the company, but I don't think he's a decision maker. And I think he's kind of more a part of the machinery of the company than somebody who they really rely on for wisdom and insight.
Huh. Well, we'll have to wait and see, because I'm all in. Whatever negativity I have about this movie, I'm still all in, because I love this format of breaking down a movie, analyzing it. You know, it's not 1 minute at a time, but we are going to do a deep dive, and I always find that interesting.
You might, and I think that you will be, as we break it down, I think that there are some folks who contribute in this movie who do a really fantastic job at their craft, and I'm looking forward to talking about that some too.
Well, as we go through the opening credits, you know, we've got Santa who's got his list unfurled. He's going through it. And we have a little insight from Santa's perspective into the Griswold family, because as you go through all the names that have a check mark next to them, at the line for the Griswolds, you've got a box that's not checked.
Yes,
but
that's right.
I don't know what's up with Santa, because even though the Griswolds, I guess, are supposed to be bypassed, the very next shot is he's delivering to their house.
Yeah, I think Santa's got a lot of grace. I always got presents, so I'm assuming
so
that he did
Santa's
not
a
always,
forgiving kind of guy.
Yes, he
right?
does. He did not always check his list that closely.
Well, let me ask you this, Walt. I know the National Lampoon folks are behind this, but why does Santa act sort of as bumbling and silly as Clark Griswold?
I think it's because they are setting the tone for what's coming up. And we already knew from the previous vacation movie what the Griswolds are like and what to expect from this movie. And I think that's just kind of putting Santa in that same universe with them, that they're kind of, kind of goofy and, kind of cartoonish.
So we've got this amazing guy, lives up at the North Pole, spends 364 days a year to be able to bring all of these gifts to all of these families across the world. And the very first thing we see is he goes to step out of his sleigh. He doesn't even know how to judge where the snow is on the edge of the roof line, and he ends up crashing and falling to the ground.
Well, but think about it this way, that at their house, everybody's a bumbling idiot. That doesn't mean that everybody's a bumbling idiot everywhere. So I think that as you come in contact with Clark Griswold, your life kind of goes a little bit wonky.
Oh, maybe that's it. Okay, so we're going to label it right now. Episode 1, The Griswold Effect.
I think we've just coined a phrase.
That might help me through the rest of this movie. That everybody is totally normal until they get within the bubble of the Griswold household. It's sort of like that movie where you see sort of like the near invisible shield, and when things hit it, like phaser or whatever, it sort of, moves around it. Well, maybe as you enter into this bubble, you become a bumbling idiot.
That's right. It's kind of like a ripple in space.
It certainly messes you up.
Indeed it does.
Well, do you think we should look at the cast list a little bit, maybe?
Yeah.
Kind of go through this. Obviously, the lead guy is Chevy Chase.
Yeah, and, everybody knows who he is. He's kind of done everything. But one of the things that I did kind of want to mention with the Movies by Minute, several of the movies that he has been involved with have been covered by some of the folks who do these Movie by Minute.
Oh, pray tell, which ones?
Well, sorry, I put that list away. Hang on a second. my preparation kind of fell apart.
You better thank God you have a good editor.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. All right, so he, of course, has done Caddyshack.
True.
Which...
and by the way, there is no sequel to Caddyshack.
People claim there was a sequel?
Some claim that there is in some parallel universe a sequel, but in my world, there is only one Caddyshack movie.
That's too weird. So, now that I think about it, I think that may be the only one. I was thinking that someone had done Fletch, but I don't think anybody's done Fletch yet.
No, actually, it was you and I that were talking about Fletch during one of the season 1 of the Wilder Ride. We had Jeff Lieboff as our guest, and we talked about that series of books and the Fletch movies at that time.
That's right. That's right. And that series, well, at least the first one, and to some degree, the second one, but the first Fletch movie is still one of my favorites. And I think it's probably my favorite Chevy Chase movie.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I love the original Fletch movie. In fact, I didn't have a huge problem with Fletch 2. It wasn't quite as good or had the charm of the first one. But the way I felt about the first one, it reminded me about sort of how I felt about the original Beverly Hills Cop. It was just an original and something that I liked Chevy Chase in.
Yeah, and his smart aleck personality came through, but it wasn't overwhelming. And it didn't steal from the rest of the cast, where he does have a tendency to do that at times.
Well, and the thing about the Fletch movies that I like, and it goes back to what I just said over the vacation movies, is he can be silly or sarcastic, but he's not a buffoon.
That's right.
Where here, he's definitely an over-the-top clown.
That's right. Yeah, he is much more in control of his universe in Fletch than he is in Vacation, where the universe is really kind of beating him up.
Well, he's subject to the Griswold effect.
Very true. You know, another movie of his that I really, really enjoy is The Three Amigos. And
I have to go back and rewatch that because I think I've only seen it once. That's Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Chevy Chase, right?
That's right. That's right. And I've always liked Martin Short a lot. And of course, I've been a huge fan of Steve Martin my whole life. And the three of them together could have really pulled at each other for screen time and attention. But I thought the three of them were fantastic together.
Well, without a doubt, I think Martin Short is one of the underrated members of the SNL cast to go on to a film career.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, he had some stuff happen in his life that ended up kind of leading to an early semi-retirement or whatever. I mean, he just wasn't around that much for a long time. And but it's good to see him back doing some stuff. He and Steve Martin just had a special on Netflix that's really funny. And he's doing some other stuff. So, but the three of them together had really good chemistry for that movie. So I definitely recommend that. And it's a really good Chevy Chase movie, again, where his personality comes through, but it's not overwhelming.
Well, while we're on Chevy Chase for a second, I mean, we're not going to dive into his entire film repertoire, but as an older actor, someone who's been around and in the business for a long time, depending when you're stumbling across the listening of this particular episode, we've got 5 different things that he's in either pre-production, filming, or post-production. He's in The Last Laugh as Al Hart. He's doing the voice of King Karoth in Pandaverse Aliens. He's in pre-production for The Ogilvy Fortune, in pre-production for Overnight Visit, and pre-production for Federal Offense. So he may not be the most prolific actors post Saturday Night Live compared to maybe some of the other ones, or maybe the level of fame of some of the other ones, but
yeah,
he's certainly not hurting for a paycheck.
No, and you know, he recently did the series Community as well. And I thought he was excellent in that. And so he has constantly been doing major stuff since he left SNL.
You know, somebody else who I just really adore, and maybe it's just because I don't recognize her from other movies, but Beverly D'Angelo. I mean, she's funny. There's a sexiness to her. There's a believability to her, and very easy on the eyes.
Yeah, and she's a real bright spot in this movie. But they could not have picked a better person to play kind of the hot wife and the and kind of the straight man to Chevy Chase, even though she is still a strong character and she kind of at times is able to put him in his place. She really steals the show in some of the scenes.
No, she definitely plays a good foil to him, keeping him more in balance.
You know, it's interesting with her. She was in one of my other favorite movies, and I know you're going to laugh at this. She played Echo in Every Which Way But Loose. And I don't know if you've seen that movie recently, but I had kind of forgotten that was her until I was going back through this, and I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. And just looking at all the things she was in, there's a lot of stuff I forget about. she really is a fantastic actress.
She's got a good body of work. She's got a good body. But no, seriously.
I was going to say,
she's
you
got
can
a good
stop at
of
body.
work. You know, I know they had to replace the kids from the original one, but Juliette Lewis and Johnny Galecki have had stellar careers after this movie. I mean, some of the things they've done have been great. Obviously, Johnny Galecki, one of the highest paid sitcom actors for The Big Bang Theory. And Juliette Lewis has been in so many different movies, and she plays sort of that quirky, weird kind of character. Everything she does, she buys into it 100%. Whether it's Natural Born Killers, From Dusk Till Dawn. I mean, everything she plays, she's just all in. And I kind of respect that from my own time as an actor, whether it's film or theater. I admire somebody, whether it's a bad movie or a good movie, when they can sell the performance and give 100%.
Yeah, I agree. And it probably helped that she grew up in an acting family, but she has always been one of those real just great actresses that can carry a role in an amazing way. And I think even in this movie, there are scenes that even just her facial expressions just make the scene pop.
Yeah, you know, one of my favorite movies, all-time favorite movies, it's a quirky sci-fi movie called Strange Days, directed by Catherine Bigelow, who at the time was married to James Cameron. And it's a movie starring Ralph Fiennes, where we're on the cusp of the 21st century. It's a little off, obviously, in terms of the technology from where we are today. But the idea behind it is you could wear this sort of neural net, and whatever you were experiencing, it would record not just what you were seeing through your eyes, but it would give you the same feeling or sensation, and it would record those senses. Then you could take that recording and sell it sort of like a video to someone else, who could then play the video and via proxy feel what it was like to live in your shoes for a moment.
Oh, that's crazy.
Well, what's so big about that? Well, this guy would the disc this guy was selling, Ralph Fiennes' character, he might have a bank robber wear it or a smash and grab thief wear it. So you could then get a feel of what it was like to have that rush of adrenaline to break into someone's house. The cops show up and you try to run away and get away from them. So these folks would wear this neural net to capture that and then sell their feelings of what it was like to live through that experience. So you could, by proxy, then live through those kinds of things. Well, the concept of this whole movie is somebody was wearing one of these when they witnessed two dirty cops committing a murder, and so the cops want it back.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a great, great movie. It's sort of it's a small, almost a B movie, but it's a decent budget, and Catherine Bigelow directed, James Cameron behind the scenes sort of helping to push things. But I think she's just a fantastic director. And if you have never seen Strange Days, you need to check it out, because Juliette Lewis plays the ex-girlfriend of Ralph Fiennes' character, and she plays sort of this character that's sort of a punk rock singer in an underrock band, in an underground band. And she wears like a chain metal bra, and it leaves nothing to the imagination, but the whole time she has no fear, and I just love her.
Well, and I think I'm going to have to watch that. That sounds like an interesting movie, and I think I've somewhere on.
If you've never seen it, you need to treat yourself to it right now.
Check out I've got it on one of my watch lists.
Will stay with you for a long time, like forever. I mean, a week after you get done watching it, you'll be sitting back thinking about that movie.
Okay, I'm going to have to jot that down and watch that. That sounds like it's kind of right up my alley. So, one thing that's interesting about her is that ties in with Beverly D'Angelo. Her dad, Jeff Lewis, played Orville, or Jeffrey Lewis played Orville in Every Which Way But Loose, where Beverly D'Angelo was playing Echo.
Cool.
So I wondered if she got that part because of that relationship. I can't remember when these movies came out, but that's kind of an interesting cross. And he has been in tons of stuff. So I'm sure growing up in a family where you have such an accomplished actor father, that has to help with the craft.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the thing about this movie, even though I'm going to reserve my judgment on it, there are a lot of talented people in Christmas Vacation, because one of the next names we get to is John Randolph, who plays Clark Sr. A Tony Award winning actor. And back in the 40s, he actually found himself blacklisted during the McCarthy era. So this is a guy who had been around a while and had seen Hollywood's dark side as well as its light side.
So I had seen that he got blacklisted. What did he get blacklisted for? Do you know?
He was a huge social activist and probably pushed a lot of the left agenda at the time, and maybe was part of the communist movement just by proxy, sort of guilt by proxy. And because he was such a social activist, I think that just got him in that same net.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's interesting. And going through some of these films, it's crazy some of the names that got put on those lists.
Oh, yeah. Well, Diane Ladd comes up next, and there's another just easy on the eyes actress.
Yes, no question about that.
Well, was she in? I mean, she's been in a lot of things. She's been in everything. I mean, back to Chinatown in the early 70s, all the way through to TV movies and miniseries and many theatrical films.
Yeah, and she's one of those familiar faces that every time I see her, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember her from whatever. And it's always something different. So I don't know how many credits she has to her name, but it has to be well over 100.
Oh, it's tons of credits. I think 139 credits according to IMDb. And right now she's got 3 things in post-production. A TV movie that's going to be coming out later this year called Christmas Lost and Found. Another movie coming out later this year, Charlie's Christmas Wish. And then a movie in 2019 called The Last Full Measure.
Wow. That's amazing that she's got that much going on.
Yeah, she's got a pretty active career.
Yeah, and when you look at an actress like that, she really has a passion for the job, because at her age, she doesn't have to be working. She's made a ton of money. She's done real well for herself. She's got a great career to look back on. So it's neat to see her still active and working.
Right. Another character who we all like, but he's been around forever, E.G. Marshall plays Art. And, the first thing I ever remember E.G. Marshall in was his role in Creepshow.
Yes. And he is one of those actors that every single thing you ever see him in, he is awesome.
Yeah, he's very, very good. But an old school kind of actor, the kind of guy that, he shows up to the set to work. He's not screwing around. He's not joking around all the time. He's not doing a bunch of dumb stuff. He's there to work. And just that old school work ethic.
Yeah, you know your lines, you know everybody else's lines, and yeah, he is definitely that type of actor.
I love the Creepshow story with the bugs.
Yes, Creepshow was awesome. I guess in a creepy way, it was awesome.
Yeah, no doubt.
In a poltergeist way, it was awesome.
I know our listeners may not want us to dive into everything, but we're going to go through just a handful more of these characters before the lesser ones. Doris Roberts, a character who has a tie into Young Frankenstein in the sense that she played Ray Romano's mom, where Peter Boyle was the dad.
Well, and Doris Roberts and Julia Louis-Dreyfus were also both on Seinfeld.
So they got a chance to play husband and wife, and she's in this as Frances. And who can forget Randy Quaid playing crazy cousin Eddie?
Yeah, and of course Randy Quaid, completely nuts and perfect for this role.
Now, one of the names I do want to get to before we dive into the actual movie, do you say it Kestel or Questel?
I think it's Kestel, but I'm not positive.
She plays Bethany. I had no idea that she was the voice or the voiceover actress of Betty Boop.
That is correct.
I mean, it's crazy.
Isn't it crazy? And she had a huge, long career.
I'm blown away. I think this was the last movie she did, but to go from 1930s Betty Boop, 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 be-doo, boop.
Yeah.
I mean,
and when you know that, you can kind of hear that voice when she talks now.
Yeah. Some of this, I will tell you this, one of the things that I will give about, or any movie that when you dive this deep into it, when you learn some of that and then go back and rewatch it, there's inherent interest no matter what, because of these little bits of trivia that we dig up.
Oh, yeah. And it really does make the movie more fun for me.
One last name I want to bring up, because there was a Seinfeld tie-in, and I had no idea in my recollection, is that Juliette Louise-Dreyfus was in this movie.
Yeah. And I think this is the first place I ever really remember seeing her.
That's crazy.
Yeah, outside.
I had no, I mean, like right now, sitting here waiting to get into episode 1, only seeing the animated credits, I have no idea who she plays.
Oh, you don't?
No, I have no, like right now, if you were to ask me, who is she? Like, where does she show up in the movie? I couldn't tell you.
As soon as you see her, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I know exactly who she is.
Oh, I know I will. I'm just like, that's keeping me in right now because I had no idea she was in this movie.
And,
I mean, that's how tuned out I have been whenever we've been watching this movie.
well, yeah, she comes up early in this film, and she has a really fun part. I would love to talk to her about this part because it had to be a blast to play. Well, there's one more name I want to mention before we move on, and that's someone who I actually know personally, and that is the costume director, Michael Kaplan. Michael was the costume director for Star Trek Into Darkness. So when I went out and did that, I ended up getting to spend some time with Michael and talk to him a good bit, and he and I text back and forth from time to time.
Really?
Yes. Really, really just the nicest guy you will ever meet. Absolutely just a pleasure to be around. Kind of quiet, but just a really great guy. And he has done everything in Hollywood. Blade Runner, I Am Legend, the 2009 Star Trek. So he did the redesign on all those uniforms and everything else. He and J.J. Abrams are very close. And so he's worked on The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and he's doing the costuming for Star Wars Episode 9, which the name has not been released yet. And Michael is just a really great guy. And when I was out there and talking to him and I was asking him how he got started in the business, the first thing he ever worked on was he was the coffee getter for the Sonny and Cher show.
Or Terry Garr used to have a little role.
Where Terry Garr. That's right. So,
oh my God. See, here's what's so funny. When you said Michael Kaplan, I follow the Blade Runner Minute podcast. And in one of their recent episodes, they were talking about the costume design, like Rutger Hauer's coat and all the costumes, and that Michael Kaplan. And I'm like, wait a minute, you can't possibly be talking about the same person. And yet you are. The same one who did Blade Runner, which is basically one of my all-time favorite movies, did The Force Awakens, Armageddon, Star Trek, the reboot. I mean, come on. I love this movie now. Yeah, no, that's all it took.
I knew I'd find the hook. Well, there's a part coming up in this movie. It's unfortunately not this week, but Michael told me something one time about one of the scenes, and I cannot wait to get to it because it is one of the most hilarious things I have ever heard in my life. So I am excited to get, I think it comes up, I think it'll come up next week.
Okay.
So, but it was cool to get some behind the scenes from him about this movie and the actors, and he said it was one of the most fun films he worked on.
Really?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. He said just the people he worked with and the creativity that they had, and that they were kind of allowed to have full reign of their area of expertise. And he said it was just a lot of fun to work on.
Huh. Well, I'm encouraged. I mean, as of this moment in time, just the mention of Michael Kaplan, I mean, you've increased my respect for this movie threefold.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I knew I'd drag you kicking and screaming into
you're dragging
into
me
the
along,
light here.
Exactly. Well, I will tell you, when the director comes up, is one of the last credits to come up as we watch Santa go through his antics, and it's Jeremiah S. Chechnik, born in Montreal, Quebec. Quick shout out to that because that's where my mom was born, and I'm first generation American on my mom's side. I mean, my mom first moved to Detroit as a young child and tossed into America, didn't even know how to speak English because she was in the French-speaking area of Montreal. Well, Montreal is French-speaking, so she didn't know any English when she first came to America. So I'm first-generation American thanks to my mom's side of the family, and that's where he came from. And one of the other movies he's known for that I've always liked, a very early Johnny Depp film, Benny and June. So he directed that a few years after this. He doesn't have a lot that I recognize. He's done a lot of TV, probably known from Gossip Girls that my girls probably watched. I know I never did, but, you know, I hear some of the dialogue and they'd be watching it. But, you know, it's not my cup of tea, but he has done his share of film and TV. More TV probably than film, it looks like.
Well, and you did say this was his first film, right? Is that right? Because
I don't know if it was his first film. You know, maybe
I think it was because
I think he did music videos just before this.
He did music videos and commercials.
Okay,
and
so yeah, maybe this was.
So this was either his first or it was very early.
Definitely. I mean, based on IMDb right now, I see that this was a 1989 credit, and his earlier credits, the Hall & Oates Downtown Life video and Van Halen When It's Love.
Oh, well, there you go. That's a good one.
So he was directing that video when I was graduating high school. How about that?
That's crazy.
I do love that no matter what, I love diving deep and seeing all the stuff that we can pull out and how it all pulls together.
I was going to say, even bad movies are going to be fun.
Well, there are some movies that get a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes that I think would be awesome to review.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And you know, with my personality and sarcasm, that I'm going to love them. So,
well, let's get into our first live action shot. After all of Santa's shenanigans and all the credits, we see a station wagon kind of going down some road. As we zoom into the car, we've got mom and dad and both kids. They're in the back seat and dad is singing away.
Yeah, he's got the dad glasses on. He's got the flannel shirt. He definitely has a good dad look to him.
Well, see, now you've got Juliette Lewis rolling her eyes in the back seat, wearing her little beret, and Johnny Galecki is just rolling his head back, his eyes in the back of his head, going, "Dear God, just shoot me."
I kind of feel like the writer was on my family's vacation because this is, my parents didn't sing, but it was always like this. It was like, oh my gosh, when are we going to be there? And what are you talking about? And why do we have to do this? So I can definitely relate to this family.
Yeah, the mom and dad are singing with gusto, not necessarily totally off key, not great, but then when he goes to cut it to the kids and there's like silence, and then I guess we'll just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the humor in this scene particularly, well, in a lot of the scenes in this movie, is subtle, but it's still pretty strong.
Uh-huh.
And I think they do a really good job of keeping you kind of comically engaged the whole time, even if they're not in the middle of a good, solid punchline.
Well, the dialogue here is very much John Hughes to me, and I do appreciate that. I don't know if I'm going to appreciate all of the situation comedy moments, but in terms of the dialogue, whether the kids are just playing smarmy with the dad and the dad is just not going to let it ruin his mood, he is in holiday mode. The spirit has him. Doesn't matter what his daughter says. Doesn't matter what his son says. All he's on is the quest to find the perfect Griswold family Christmas tree.
Well, and you can imagine what this conversation was like, getting the two kids in the car for this. It was like, I do not want to go do this. I want to go do something with my friends. I want to go hang out somewhere. I want to watch TV. I want to do anything but go with the family to get the stupid Christmas tree.
All right. So the first little hijinks moment is, and this is something that's typical of this kind of the shtick of Chevy Chase. There's some jackass,
Good golly,
who's riding his tail, some, Bubba Redneck, and
Right.
just right up on his bumper. And his wife is like, well, just slow down. Just, let him pass. And then what does he do? He's, just as they're about to, he's going to play that game of stepping on it and be a total dick.
good golly.
And it ends up backfiring on him because just as they pass him, they hit the brakes and then he has to slam his brakes and then nearly starts fishtailing off the road.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of the Clark Griswold character. He cannot let stuff go. It's like a compulsion. He has to win.
Right. And I get that for the first vacation, but I'm also I'm like, did he not learn anything from the first adventures of trying to get to Wally World?
No. And that might be lesson number 2
The
here.
answer here is no.
He does not learn anything ever.
I mean, he's not the most macho guy, and he's not Mr. Kung Fu. I don't know about you, but whenever I run into a situation like this where I see, Bubba Redneck and he wants to, he's in a pickup truck and I'm not going to bother screwing with him. I don't need him pulling a shotgun out or doing something stupid to me.
No, and I, I've been in some rough situations before, and I really try to do my best to diffuse everything. And you never want to be in that situation where you're playing, who's got the biggest attitude, particularly when you're in cars and pickup trucks with guns in the truck.
I mean, he's driving a Ford freaking station wagon.
That's right. In fact, he is driving a Ford station wagon. He is driving one of the worst vehicles ever, and
it's not a Pinto.
No, it is not a Pinto. And I've got some notes on it, and I can't stinking find them. Hold on. Where are my notes on this stupid car? It's a great car. Oh, a Ford Taurus.
Yes, it's the Taurus station wagon, which was only a few years out when they were making this.
Yeah, they did. And it was announced in 1989. Oh, well, I'm sorry. This is the 1989 car. It was announced about 2 years before. And Motor Trend magazine called it the car of tomorrow.
Oh, dear Lord.
I imagine when it had been out a little while, they called it the car of the garbage dump, because it was a nightmare.
Well, this, you get a sense that they're trying to make this into an almost Mad Max moment because, and from a cinematography perspective, they do a great job of matching the screen inside the car with what's happening outside the car, even though, he's not actually doing the stunt driving.
No, and they do a great job of that. And one of the things I really like about the shot is the scenery, which, what part of Illinois do you think this is?
I have no idea. I have no idea where you go to get these kind of mountains.
Yeah, it was actually filmed in Breckenridge, Colorado.
I was going to say, which part of Illinois? Must be Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado, exactly right.
The Colorado side of Illinois.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely not Illinois.
The blue screen work really is well done because you can tell when they're underneath the truck that they've got 2 actual logs sort of jiggling above them and everything else is blue screen. He's not actually driving underneath the actual log truck, but it matches pretty seamlessly. The edits are working very, very well. And if you're not watching, if you're not a student of film and you can sense how all of the blue screen matches, you'd have no idea that it wasn't him actually doing it.
No, you're right. And they did a great job. There were a lot of movies at this time, a lot of TV shows too, that you could tell it was blue screened. But I had to look a couple of times to try to figure out whether they, did some sort of stunt with them or whether it was blue screen.
And in typical Clark Griswold fashion, here's the thing about him. He doesn't take it seriously when he's about to die. He's playing it off the whole time like, haha, this is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, and you can tell, you can see the temper rising. And, his whole demeanor is changing here. And he has to win. He's got to win.
Yeah, and then just after Mom comes up with the prayer, rewriting the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, he yells amen and dives out from underneath the truck, and literally there's a snowplow coming right at him.
Well, before that, one of my favorite scenes in this whole movie is when he goes, "Look, kid's a deer." Everybody looks and he flips off the 2 rednecks.
He's such an idiot.
He is. And the 2 rednecks have that beat up truck that has the metal girls on the back. It's just such a great scene.
Well, he just misses the snowplow and goes through a big snow drift, then goes airborne and dives right into the tree farm. Apparently, that was their intention to go to since the very beginning.
It takes out, they take out the tree farm sign.
Oh, yeah.
How awesome is that?
Maybe it's the car of the future. It can fly.
Yeah, and he's a menace. he really is a menace to everybody around him.
Move over, George Jetson. You ain't got shit.
Good golly.
On Clark Griswold.
Yeah. The man leaves a disaster in his wake every minute of every day.
All right. I grew up in Detroit, so we got our share of snow, and we had our share of snow drifts, and our share of walking around in the snow. I don't know that I've ever gone tree shopping for Christmas with snow that was, I don't know, up to my butt. I mean, it's almost waist deep in it.
Yeah, where it's really a danger to life and limb to be out in it.
I mean, these guys are like in some kind of Arctic trek. You know, they're up in the Yukon territory waiting for like Yukon Cornelius to come down looking for silver and gold.
Yeah, you know, Chevy Chase is a tall guy, and the snow is to the bottom of his jacket. I mean, it's not waist deep, but it's pretty close.
Now, it's a deep snow. I mean, maybe it's not quite waist deep, but you know, at one point when they cross and there's that initial long shot, it looks like it's going up to their waist. Maybe it's just the way it fades into the next shot. But that whole family, it looks like blizzard conditions, not a soul around. He doesn't have an axe. He doesn't have a saw. He's got nothing. And yet they're out there going looking for their tree.
Well, have you ever really like gone to the woods to get a tree for Christmas?
No.
It is the most miserable experience I've ever had. And I did it in South Georgia. It was about 60, 70 degrees, humid, raining. And I had to go out trudging around the woods with my dad, my grandfather, his moonshine, my brother, and one of my uncles.
How did I not know moonshine would be involved?
It was our family. So,
hey, that looks like a good tree.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to how the kids are feeling right now. Well, of course, we weren't trudging through snow, but Chevy Chase is a 6'3.5". So that's some seriously deep snow.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, only he could drag his family through that.
I don't even know why. I mean, the kids, I can't even imagine them saying, let's go on a 3-mile trek into the frozen tundra.
Yeah.
You know, we've got
no supplies.
Like we're waiting for like a man called Wolf to start showing up.
Well, and it also looks like it's getting kind of late in the day. And
it is. It's freaking nighttime. The temperatures are dropping. You know, the front's moving in. You know,
again, for the fourth time today, he's almost killed his whole family.
I mean, it's turning into a Jack London short.
The wolves are starting to hunt.
Oh! Come on, kids. It's just dogs. Well,
and you know, one of the things I've always thought was so funny about this movie is that, like, most of the stuff you're like, no family would do that. It's like,
bend over and I'll show you.
Shit, yeah, we've done stuff like this.
See, maybe that's it. I never did anything like it, so I can't even imagine doing something like this.
You know, and I come from a very highly educated family. We're not dummies, but God, we do stupid crap like this. I mean, one time when I was a kid, we were living in Ohio at the time, and my dad and I were like, "Oh, let's go ice skating." My dad fell through the pond.
You kidding
when he took
me?
his first step, went right up to his shoulder blades, and had to climb out of the thing. And he's dripping wet. We get back in the car and drive home. It's like
he suffers from
probably
hypothermia on the way home.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, well, I've been to Vietnam. I've had worse." I'm like, thinking about it now, I'm like, yeah, but Vietnam was like 184 degrees.
Right.
This is like 32 degrees, and now you're soaking wet from pond water.
Oh, my God.
I get where Rusty and his sister are coming from here.
You know, there is a funny moment here, and I do this a lot. In, you know, when we're shopping for something or looking for that perfect item, and somebody says something either magical or amazing, or I find like that perfect item, the perfect thing is happening, whatever it is, I'll do that angels on high.
Oh, yeah, right. And I bet you get the exact same expression on your face that Chevy Chase has.
Oh, yeah, it's just sheer joy. I mean, I'll never know what sadness is again. It's the happiest that I'll feel for the rest of my life. This is what heaven is like. No kids. No pets? Wait, no, I love my pets.
And your poor wife probably over and over and over again has been like, Alan, it's just new windshield wiper blades. Alan, it's just a new pair of walking shoes. Alan, it's just a new McDonald's.
Look,
and
they're
here
putting
you
a
are.
Taco Bell in.
You're like one of those big dumb dogs like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. We're having the same treat we had yesterday.
It's a perfect example. I turn into a freaking dog. And I will love him, and I will pet him, and I will squeeze him, and I will call him George.
I can actually see this. Maybe that's why you don't like this movie. It hits too close to home.
Yeah, okay. Now, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
When it comes to proportions, don't you have some sense of scale or size in terms of how tall things are in the real world?
Clark obviously has no concept. His brain runs away from him all the time. And he's an engineer of some kind.
Right. I mean, okay. It doesn't even matter. You don't have to be an engineer. You know how tall your ceilings are in your house.
Well, and this tree looks like it's about ready for harvest for timber. I mean, this is a big tree.
If you look at the background, it's as tall as some of the frickin' trees behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is not a tree for your house.
I love the golden glow. I love the humor behind seeing like the perfect tree. But as they come even into the shot, I mean, the tree is so tall. It's got to be 20 feet tall.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the way that they shoot this down, and even when he's walking up, so he's 6'3", so that's 12. This is about a 22-foot tree. So,
right. I mean, it's ginormous.
Yeah, and so as he walks up on it, you can see, how giant it is, and he is just in absolute awe. It's covered in pine cones, and then, the family comes trudging up, but they have that shot looking down on the family. That shot could be from the roof of their house. I mean, this is a monster tree.
It's huge. And the fact that he's got this stupid grin on his face and he can't even see how tall this tree is. I mean,
absolutely hilarious.
I'm going to have to put like a little tick mark. How many dumb moves you've had? How did you not know? How would you like what in the world would make you think that this tree is going to fit in your living room?
I don't think he cares. I think he's just like, this is the right one. It's going to work. We're going to have to make it work.
It's got to be one of those things where we're outside, so there is no sense of scale because everything's huge out here, so the tree looks small in comparison to, I don't know, the mountains.
Yes, and I think he gets so caught in the moment that nothing else matters, if that makes sense. Like, he is so taken with this tree that it's just going to work. It just has to work, no matter how unrealistic.
When we do cut to him, I'm going to give you a little trivia that I didn't know. The Chicago Bears hat that he's wearing in this scene, he wears this same cap throughout the first 4 Vacation movies.
Really? The same one?
Uh-huh.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Wow. I knew something you didn't know.
Yeah, well, yeah,
I'm glad this is your thing.
That's a low bar, my friend. That is a low bar.
It is a little.
Yeah, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back.
So Mom, being the ever consummate wife and trying to be positive, she's like, okay, let's all do a group hug. Well, the kids are not so happy about it.
Yeah, and you know what the kids are thinking too? They're like, how the heck are we getting this back to the car? How are we even going to cut it down?
I mean, Audrey's got that look of like, if her eyes could roll further in the back of her head, she'd be doing a scene from The Exorcist.
I love that Ellen says she's frozen Clark. She'll be fine later.
Right. I mean, she'll thaw.
Her eyes are frozen open. And there's no concern whatsoever on their part about this. It's like, oh, well, we'll just get the tree and go, and Audrey will thaw out later.
This is just ridiculous.
No big deal.
While they're just staring in just awe, the kid asked just the one question that I was asking when they was watching him trek across the frozen tundra. Dad, did we bring a saw? And then that slow fade of the smile on Chevy Chase's face. It's like, just like, oh,
Good golly.
son of a.
Well, which is immediately followed by the answer to how they got the tree out.
Right, because we see that they're dragging it on top of the car, and apparently, okay, look, Walt. All right. Walt,
I know where this is going.
help me. They didn't have a saw, yet they had a shovel?
Well, they may have dug it out with their hands.
This is so dumb. I mean, this is
I know.
so dumb.
Well, and the tree's so dadgum big, it covers up the windshield. Like, how can they even see out?
Well, this can't even be the same tree because it's only about 12 feet
Yeah,
here
no, it's
because it
definitely
just goes from
smaller.
the back of the car to the front.
But I love that they have the big root ball hanging out the back of the car. It's just amazing.
And besides, even if they had a shovel, do you know how far those roots go? And you still have to chop some of those roots to get the tree out.
Oh, yeah. You'd have to have a tractor to dig this out.
It's ridiculous. I mean, they've got it strapped over the car like a dead deer that they found on the side of the road.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So I guess that's joke number one. How do you get your family Christmas tree home? Because the very next thing, we're back to suburbia in a subdivision, and there's a family coming home, they're neighbors, and there's Julia Louise Dreyfus, and she's looking at this giant tree on top of the car next door.
Okay, so the house that they live in, that Julia Louis Dreyfus and Todd live in, do you know what else that house has been in?
No.
You're going to love this. That was the Murtaugh house from Lethal Weapon.
No.
This movie, the house shots were filmed on the back lot at Warner Brothers, where they have a neighborhood constructed, and that is the Murtaugh house.
No, really?
Yep, it is.
Well, how about a double Christmas tie-in?
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
So that's the house where at the very end of the first one, you've got Mel Gibson taking on whatever his name, Mr. Happy or whatever.
You got it. Right there in that yard that we're looking at as they pull in with their squeaky brakes.
Okay, I'm fascinated now. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? I would love to see this back lot. There are pictures now. Somebody did a tour of the back lot, and they went to the Griswold house, and it has been, of course, kind of the veneer has been redone a couple of times, and it's kind of the same, but like you can tell that it's the Griswold house, but it's different looking. But I would love to see the Murtaugh house. They didn't even take a picture of that, but that is the Murtaugh house.
I guess we've got a visual joke here of Chevy Chase coming out, the combination of Jason and Leatherface.
Isn't that amazing? I love that shot with the light in the back, and you can see the light originally shining on the big ball of the tree, and then Todd and Margot get out of their car, and they're just taken with the fact that their neighbor is an idiot.
Yeah. So Dad immediately begins to goes to cut the stump to get rid of the root ball. And the next shot, we have, I guess they have some pretty tall ceilings in the living room, but not quite tall enough.
Wait, we can't pass this moment by without the conversation between Clark and Todd. And Todd makes some smart aleck comment, and he says, "Where are you going to put that tree?" And Clark says, "Bend over and I'll show you." And Todd says, "I can't believe you said that to me." And he goes, "I wasn't talking to you." Right. And Margot gets this look on her face like,
totally
"Oh my gosh." I just love that line. That is such an awesome, just a kick in the face line to both of them, because he totally emasculates Todd.
Bend over and I'll show you. I wasn't talking to you. Oh my God.
And a classic Chevy Chase line. And then he just puts the mask down and goes to cutting on the tree.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a combination of Jason and Leatherface with a chainsaw above his head. That's crazy.
And the hockey mask. That's just great.
This is actually kind of a visually funny moment when he decides he's got all the branches tied down so they won't catch the wind. You know, if you've ever gone shopping for a real live Christmas tree, they'll use netting to try to keep all the limbs together.
Yes. Yeah, to keep it aerodynamic to some degree.
So prior to apparently having the netting, they used ropes. And so all these branches are sort of tied up to keep it together. I will tell you, you can sense the tension on those ropes before he even starts to cut it. And it telegraphs the joke even before it happens.
Yeah, it looks like you got about 40,000 pounds of pressure on those ropes.
It looks like they're just getting ready to snap.
Yeah, and the whole family's sitting there. He never could have gotten through that with the scissors that he's using.
No,
but,
no,
and the
not at all.
The whole family's kind of like, this is not going to go well.
I mean, the tree is already, it's bending at the ceiling. It's too tall.
Yeah. and that's Beverly, or Ellen's question is, can we get the angel on top? He's like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I've got some trimming to do.
Right. Mr. Optimistic here. I'm just going to say what I hope will happen.
Right.
You know, just if I say it, it'll
what's
be reality.
true in my mind.
Just all I have to do is say it.
Is true.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever I say, that's what it is.
Right. No matter how stupid it is. But then the kids, they put so much, they give the audience so much through the kids and their expressions, because Audrey is just like, she's just looking almost in disgust. And then Rusty's like, yeah, this is just not going to go well. This is not going to go the way Dad wants it to.
I mentioned this in the Poltergeist show because I'm watching this with headphones, and I swear to God, I'm on the dock of some old sailing ship before he's starting to cut the rope. I mean, the sound of the tension on the rope that's about to be cut, you can hear it like creaking and straining, and it's just like, it's incredible.
I wonder what the Foley department used for that sound.
I don't know, the HMS Pinafore?
Yeah, that's probably about right.
I mean, it's like an old sailing ship. It's like I'm suddenly on the deck of the Black Pearl, Pirates of the Caribbean. It's just the Black Pearl's listing from side to side, waiting for something to snap. And of course, as soon as he cuts the rope, bang, everything goes everywhere, and window breaking.
Oh, 2 windows. In the second window, you can actually see a 2x4 tied to the limb as it goes through the window. So
I got to tell you, though, Ed, the tree, when they finally pull back and they show it sitting in the living room, it's nowhere close to the tree that we saw outside.
Oh, no.
Not even close.
No, it's not. But, there's a good insight into Clark here, because right before he cuts it, in very dramatic fashion, he says, I give you the Griswold family Christmas tree.
I give you the Griswold family Christmas tree.
And then he cuts it, and the thing just blows open, blows the windows out. The family doesn't even react to 2 windows getting knocked out. They're just like, another day with Dad.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got the tree just envelop him.
Good thing it's not cold outside.
Yeah. Chicago in December, why would you think it'd be cold?
I know. Right next door to Colorado.
There you go.
But sure went far for that tree.
They did. They did. Well, and then Clark's line is great. He kind of goes from the triumphant announcement to a lot of sap in here. A lot of sap.
Right. Because it's going to play into the joke in this next moment, which I have a moment of trivia. You see, he's reading a People magazine, right?
Yes.
Guess who's on the cover of that People magazine?
I actually know who's on the cover of that magazine. That would be director Jeremiah Chechik,
the director.
Chechnik. Yes.
Jeremiah Chechik.
The director, Jeremiah.
Yeah. Sort of pulling a cameo in his own movie.
Well, I was wondering, do you think he knew that they did that, or do you think the prop department just did that for fun?
I don't know. I like to think that as a director, you probably, maybe they came to him and said, hey, we want to put your picture on the magazine. I don't think they would have sprung it on him. He was there shooting it anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it depends on his personality. And, I probably would have pulled something like that and just kind of figured, well, it's easier to apologize than to get permission.
Well, that's true. But that's the director of this movie on the front of the magazine. That's a nice little touch.
That's a great touch. I thought that was really cool.
A little Alfred Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock always tried to put himself into every one of his movies, which is why Mel Brooks wanted to put himself in every movie. But there was one short on the Alfred Hitchcock show where these folks were out to sea in a lifeboat and they're stranded in the North Atlantic somewhere. And the producers are like, so how you going to get your cameo here? And he's like, no problem. And he ends up being on the cover of the newspaper that one of the guys kept.
Oh, that's funny.
So, yeah, Alfred Hitchcock likes to make a cameo in almost everything he did, but whether it was for his television show or the major films he directed.
Yeah, and when you're that creative, I guess you just find a place to put yourself.
You know what's funny? I've watched Alfred Hitchcock talk and address an audience, and you would think he was the dullest, driest, most ridiculous person, and yet he was really funny. Just somehow that dry British humor it really worked because of that wry sense of humor.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, he definitely did. That is one of the most creative people ever, and I would have loved to have seen him do some other genres. I mean, even though why would he want to or why would he need to? But he was brilliant.
This whole joke where his hands are just so sticky with sap and it's all sticking to his hands out of the magazine. I mean, why didn't you just go wash your hands?
Yeah. Well, and Ellen is so great because she's just like, oh, well, life with Clark. And, just it doesn't even faze her. She's just like tearing it off of his hands. And it's all he's like a child.
He is.
And then, of course, she gets stuck on it. But yeah, he's like a big kid.
And that's one of the things that I'm going to have issue with this as we go along, is he acts like a 5-year-old through so much, and it's like the higher function of his brain never formed. It's like the frontal cortex somehow, whatever makes me feel happy.
Yep, no filter, no nothing. And what's interesting about that too, though, is you see people like that in real life that a lot of times they're just not happy. By the time they get into their 40s or 50s, life has just kind of not been great, and they get jaded or whatever. Clark, it's like everything's coming up roses all the time. So, in fact, Ellen even says, you blow things up in your mind too much. You always think everything's going to be wonderful. He's like, when do I ever do that?
He just did it downstairs.
And she goes, parties, weddings, anniversaries, funerals, graduations. And he's like, okay. The last movie that we did.
Remember Wally World?
Yeah. Yeah, everything you've ever done in your entire life. But it's just such a funny list. Parties, weddings, anniversaries, funerals. Who is like, this is going to be the greatest funeral ever?
Oh, I can imagine him just doing some dumb
Good golly.
shit thing at a funeral too, and making a complete spectacle of himself.
Yes, no doubt. Well, and then I love that he gets his, the sap gets caught in her hair, and so he's all wrapped up in that, and then the lamp gets stuck on him. The guy's a mess.
Yeah, no, this is one of the more lengthy dialogue scenes here. Just the two of them sitting in bed, talking about holiday plans and things going on, and then the joke just carrying through.
Oh, yeah. And I love the fact that she underreacts to everything he does. Anything like this, she's so used to this just being who Clark is that she's like, well, why wouldn't all this happen?
Yeah.
And it's
just like you were saying. He leans over to give her a kiss. His hand all of a sudden is entangled in her hair, and then he can't pull his hand off the lamp. I mean, it's a complete disaster. I mean, like, how do you have anything that survives in your house? Like, nothing standing when you're that much of a klutz. Well, we move into yet a completely new scene here. It's either the next day or it's certainly a working day, because we get the sense of an office building around the streets of Chicago or wherever, and it's all decorated for the Christmas holiday season. And we're suddenly what looks like a typical high-rise office building or office setting. And I guess I should have figured out that Chevy Chase is not to be taken seriously at all, because he's drinking from a Tasmanian devil mug.
I think that's awesome. That is just great. And so fits his personality. That childishness, the
whirling dervish that destroys everything?
Yeah, the whirling dervish. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So this was 1989, right?
Right.
Okay. So think about the way that just the way people dress for work has changed since 1989. these guys are coat and tie, very, serious and stuffy.
Right.
I don't ever see anybody in a coat and tie anymore.
Well, I wouldn't say anymore, but it's certainly not on a daily basis for a lot of jobs. Well, for a lot of people, it's business casual. It's the polos, it's the slacks, maybe a jacket, but certainly not, suit and tie.
Yeah, you very rarely, maybe an attorney on the way to court or somebody like that. But
a lot of lawyers are still doing that because it's expected for them in court. I got a buddy of mine who's an attorney, and they're allowed to have beards. They're even allowed to have long hair, but there's something about the decorum of the courtroom that judges will not allow attorneys to not show up without coat and tie.
Yes.
Now, one of the attorneys I do know says the minute one judge allows this to slip, it's going to be kind of like everything else. It'll snowball and hit the rest. But for now, it's still like the hallowed ground of the courthouse, and you have to wear a jacket and tie.
Well, whenever I testify, I'm always in a jacket and tie, so I can understand that. But you just don't see it anywhere else, really.
It's one of those last remaining, I guess, government, depending how high up you are, and the court system, which is technically a branch of government anyway.
Yeah.
Those are the areas where you are still sort of, it's demanded that you wear the suit and tie.
Yeah, and they do have kind of the longer hair. And anyway, it was just kind of interesting to see. In 1989 doesn't seem like that long ago to me.
Not to you and me.
Yeah. I mean, to our kids, it's like, the Egyptians were building the pyramids, and then 1989, and then history started. But
we didn't even have power,
Right. No, black and white
outhouse.
TVs and an outhouse. Yes.
Oh my God, your TV was in color?
You had a TV?
By 89? Yes.
You had entertainment?
Maybe not when I was
I
younger.
thought when you were out killing woolly mammoths, you didn't have time for entertainment.
When they let us leave the cave, yes.
Yeah, that's all TV is just, electronic cave drawings. So, well, when this guy popped up here, when I was watching for this minute, I had forgotten that Sam McMurray was in this movie, but that guy is like in everything. He's got 187 credits on IMDb.
He's like that consummate working actor you run into in so many of these movies.
Yeah, he is. He is. And he was in Hill Street Blues, The Edge of Night, which I think my mom watched that. You remember the show The Ropers? It was a spinoff of Three's Company.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It was awful. Yep, he was in that. He was in Kojak, Miami Vice. And then, do you remember the movie Raising Arizona? I always thought that was a great movie. He was in that. And then he was in 2 episodes of The Simpsons in 1990. And then recently he played a doctor in Breaking Bad.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, he played the thoracic surgeon who did surgery on Walter White. So
at some point, I'm going to have to go back and watch it. I mean, I got halfway into season 2 and I just kind of stopped.
Yeah, it starts to pick up. It's really a good show. I think if you watch it all the way through, you're really going to enjoy it.
I hear it is. And a lot of people said you have to kind of make it through that second season. It sort of bogs down for a bit, but that it really picks up as you head into season 3.
Yeah, season 3 goes nutso, and then it's kind of it's a great run to the end.
Well, it's definitely on my list to continue.
Yeah,
so
I highly recommend it.
I think as we start to wrap up, because we're coming very close to the end, the 14-minute mark of Christmas Vacation, I do think we need to chat for a moment about the whole driver of everything that Clark is either doing or hiding from his wife or still striving toward, and it's the Christmas bonus.
Yes. Yeah, and that is everything to him. It is absolutely everything. And I get it. I mean, it's kind of a confirmation that your boss appreciates you. It's a confirmation that you're worth the time and money. But then it also for him, as Bill here, Sam McMurray says, you're the last family man. You're the last true family man. He's always thinking about his family.
Uh-huh.
Did you notice that when he pulls the brochure out of his jacket to show Bill what he's going to do with his bonus, that he kind of looks around to see if anybody else is looking?
Right. Like it's some secret.
Yeah.
Shh, I'm building a porno studio. I'm going to shoot pornography in my backyard.
Well, I kind of wondered if he was like, Don't tell anybody because I don't want the riffraff from the office coming over to swim.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, this whole idea that it's all hush hush. I mean, I'm going to put in a pool. Oh, okay. Oh, shocking. Who would think to put a pool in your backyard?
What a surprise.
Wait, sir, a pool? Oh, you're going crazy now, aren't you?
Well, since I still have PTSD from the last movie we watched where a pool building was involved, I'm kind of glad they don't get that far in this movie.
Well, as we wrap up this minute, we've got that typical, I don't know what it is about 80s movies. It's one of those things. But when the main boss, he's coming, he's never by himself. He's got his army of his foot soldiers, and we've got that shot where it's all low of all the polished leather shoes all heading to some destination that we have to assume is Clark Griswold.
Yeah, and when they come by him, it's an interesting scene because the boss doesn't know his name. He kind of knows what he does, but it isn't like they're coming to talk to him. He is an afterthought.
Right. It's almost like you just happen to be here, or someone just happened to mention, and I'm just happening to talk to the riffraff.
Yeah, and there's a product that you have that I need information on.
Right.
And
then you get the sense of that someone had just whispered earlier, oh, that's the guy you're looking for.
Yeah, the crunch enhancer.
Yeah, for cereal.
Yeah, and it's so funny listening to the way he describes it. I think for some people it's almost like the inside workings of Monsanto, where they find the most evil stuff they can to cover our food in, and just to make it crunch more. But those guys in the background behind Brian Doyle Murray all have, I mean, it's like the Secret Service, just completely serious, stoic faces.
Well, no, it's his coterie of yes men.
Yes.
Those are all the folks that are always saying, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. You're the best, sir. You're the smartest, sir. You're the wonderful.
That's exactly right.
That's all they say all the time. It's his yes men.
All the kiss asses.
Yeah, they are. They know where their bread is buttered. I mean, come on. Yeah. They're not going to say no.
Exactly.
All right, well.
Well, and I love Chevy Chase's kiss his ass. As they all walk by, you can see his disdain for who they are.
Well, we're not going to quite get there yet. That'll be next week.
Oh, man, I just want to do the whole movie right now.
No. No, I've had my
Good golly.
fill of it.
But look at what you've already learned.
I'm totally cool with what we've done so far. I mean, we've had some really good discussions. We've talked about Christmas. We've talked about some other movies. We've talked about some of the films these other actors are either doing or coming up, or some of the movies we love. And the fact that his neighbor is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and that's where the Murtaugh house was from Lethal Weapon. I mean, come on.
Isn't that great?
That's awesome. I mean, I love it.
And I become more and more fascinated with Hollywood history as I get into these movies. And so kind of cool.
Well, let me go ahead and set the table for what happens next week when we come back for episode 2 of Christmas Vacation. And then we'll do a quick shout out to remind everyone that even though you get this episode free, you'll have to be a subscriber to get the other ones. But coming up next week, we will continue with the boss of the company marching up with his group of yes men to ask about the crunch enhancer. And it's going to end with an entire group outside, all staring, wondering, what's going on? Why isn't it working?
I cannot wait.
Oh, it's going to be fun. We'll have a lot of fun along the way.
Yes, we will.
So, Walt, let's remind everybody that this is not what we typically do at the Wilder Ride. This is not a Gene Wilder movie.
No, even though it has some Gene Wilder-esque comedy in it. No, our main focus is the works of Gene Wilder. And Alan and I are both big fans of Gene. In season 1 of our podcast, we covered Young Frankenstein, which I think is one of the great comedy classics of all time, and 106 episodes, and it is just a blast. I've been going back and re-listening to some of the episodes, and I'd forgotten a lot of what we had talked about. So I encourage you to go to iTunes or one of your other podcatchers and catch up on that. Subscribe to us. If you like what you're hearing, we'd really appreciate it. It would be a huge help to us if you would go out to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and make a comment. That way, 2 things will happen. That helps other people find us, and it pushes us up the charts so that when people are looking for Gene Wilder or any of the other movies we're going to do in the future here, Poltergeist, Christmas Vacation, that they're much more likely to find us as they go through. So that would be a huge help. And please go join the listeners group if you're not a member. Facebook.com/The Wilder Ride. And then click on join the listeners group, answer a couple questions, and become a part of what we're doing.
Right. And the most important thing is if you like this off-season content, and we did involve the listeners, not just in our holiday content, we had a poll for Poltergeist for Halloween, and that was our first special show. And our listeners had 4 options, but as you and I alluded to, I somehow left it open to let other people add options. So our listeners really drove what they wanted for this holiday season 2018, and that's why we're diving into National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Episode 1 here is available everywhere, whatever podcatcher of choice. Now, if you like what you've heard, if you've enjoyed the conversation, and if you had a good time, if you like diving deep into the movie with us, we encourage you to join our Patreon page. We have to offset the cost of doing the podcast, and this is the best way to do it, because it involves you, the listener. You give us a little bit to help offset our expenses, and we bring you this kind of content to make up for it. So join the Patreon page, very easy to find, patreon.com/The Wilder Ride. Everything that we mention that is available from our website. All the links, all the social media by going to thewilderride.com. Very easy to find.
Well, Alan, I just kind of want to close by saying I think you really get too excited about things sometimes. Like podcasts, movies, elections, Christmas, other holidays.
You threw in elections. Yeah. You know how some people feel about, let's say, the SEC championship game or the national championship game or the World Series Stanley Cup?
See, the Stanley Cup, that is important. So
give me a midterm and a presidential election cycle 2 years later, and I'm up all night. I mean, I am into it. I'm into that blood sport, the gladiator sport of politics.
See, you're like the Clark Griswold.
Well,
yeah, you're like the Clark Griswold of politics.
I'm not in politics. I like watching it.
Well, yeah, that's why you get all too excited about all this.
That's why we've got the Wilder Ride, because even I need a break from all of that stupidity.
That is exactly right. So, well, we really appreciate everybody listening. And Alan, it's been fun.
It is. And I can't wait until next week. I can't believe I'm saying that. I cannot believe I'm saying I cannot wait until next week, because we get one of the, or at least the start of one of the most iconic moments in this movie.
Oh, it's amazing.
Now, I don't know about you. I am very close, not entirely, but I'm very close to this Griswold character when it comes to outdoor Christmas decorations.
Yes, I've been to your house around the holidays. I'm well aware.
Yeah. We go just...
and I'm looking forward to it again.
Maybe just a hair to the right of overboard?
just a little. You're that neighbor.
Hey, I hope everyone, as you're listening and you're thinking about Thanksgiving, the holidays, depending when you're picking up listening, we hope that you're in the same holiday spirit that we are here. And while I know it's not such a thing for you, but who knows, maybe having this podcast to look forward to week after week will have you staying in the Christmas mood.
Hey, I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to the holidays.
All right, everybody, until next week, come back for more of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
See you next week.
Adios.